Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Maria Schouren, and I'm the co-founder of Dati. Today, I'm going to talk about software architectures, and it's going to be wild, so wear some sunglasses. I really want to first, before I start, give some credit to the artwork. It's by James Booker, and it's called Random Galaxy Art, and it's really amazing. If you want to know more, talk with me or follow us. My Twitter can be found in the left corner. Please tweet and please ask me any question that you want. Okay, let's start. So first of all, it's 2021. And while we were saving the world in 1944 by actually going to battle, today we're doing that by staying home and staying on our phone. And most of us are really doing that. And we see that in the internet traffic. The internet traffic is growing like crazy. Here is the internet usage, which was happening in the first part of 2020 until April. As you can see, it's doubling and it's been crazy. And not only the internet usage, we have the same in the e-commerce world. We were all spending a total online of 82.5 billion in May 2020, which was a 77% growth year to year. If you can see in the chart on the right corner, that is only until April, there was 27% of all the retail was happening online in the US. And as you can also see, the growth was massive. We've been doing this, and they say that the growth has been almost 6 years. What was projected has been happening right now. To survive, and basically to survive our website, as many websites are struggling with this amount of traffic and this amount of orders coming in, we're going to need some fires on our website. What do I mean with the fires principle? Well, actually, if you want to survive in these times, and if you want to make sure that your website is ready for future growth, you're going to need a software system that is flexible, so you can build whatever your business needs now and in the future. You're also going to need to have a system that is integratable, so you can integrate with any data source out there, no matter where it comes from. And also, you're going to need to be reliable. Your website needs to make sure that you can handle all the traffic as soon as you're growing and as soon as you're moving forward. Obviously, you also need to be extensible. The markets are changing very fast, and you need to be able to adapt new features, new technologies, new marketplaces in a very soon way. And you need to be able that your software can extend without adding any complexity. And last but not least, you need to be scalable. So you can scale your business unlimited as soon as your traffic is hitting or as soon as you're growing. Unfortunately, the flexibility of most websites is really, really bad. It's more like vodka than it is like yoga. And that all has to do with the architectures. So how are sites built? Software architectures are basically the beginning of how you build your system. And you're making a blueprint of each element that needs to be in your site and in the system as a whole. So not just do I need shipping and do I need pricing and do I need an image, but also how these correlate with each other. Which system has to communicate with what in the backend and in the front end. Basically, we have three main architectures. We have the monolithic architecture, we have the decoupled architecture, and we have the service-oriented architecture. I'm going to start with the monolithic architecture. Well, the monolithic architecture is the old and gold one. In the monolith, everything is tightly coupled, the UI layer, the data layer, the processes, and everything is very interwoven. And it looks like this. Oh no, my slides. Yeah. So in the monolithic architecture, as you can see, the presentation layer is very stuck together to the business logic and the data interface. In the layer design, you find these different layers, but yet they're still very close together. If something happens on the presentation side, your business logic is going to struggle. And if something happens in the business logic, your presentation layer is going to struggle. Also, when you want to change something to your website, you're going to have to change it really inside the layer, so inside the logic. Everything is there, search, images, pricing, stock, everything is inside that logic. If you want to change your pricing, if you want to change the stock service, you're going to have to break it open and rebuild inside of it. As you can imagine, if you grow, it's going to be a very big mess. It's going to be very, very complex as soon as you add more features to that. So there's a few pros of monoliths. Basically, a monolith is very, very good as the application is packaged and deployed as one. It's simple to develop, it's simple to deploy, it's simple to test, it's simple to maintain, but only if you keep this application very simple. Some cons of the monolith, and I'm not sure why there's another slide skipped, but very monoliths can fail big time. And what can happen? For example, this is an example of what happened at Magento. We have an admin user, and when the role of this admin user was just doing something, so this person would log in or change a product, etc., the whole cache was going to rebuild. So imagine you are just a business owner and you're just trying to log in. Your whole website could literally go down because of this monolith, because of this structure. But this business logic layer is very, very strongly coupled with the presentation layer. Some cons of the monolith, this brings me to the cons of the monolith, is obviously that the monoliths are very hard to extend and maintain. Monoliths are not flexible, and monoliths are not reliable. And still, most of the modern internet is unfortunately a monolith. So to skip this, you have to go wild, and we call this go wild, and you have to go headless. That's happening now. A very big hype at the moment. Everybody's going headless. What does it mean? It means that the front end is decoupled from the back end and connects via APIs. The key here is literally to take apart the front end and decouple it from the back end. It looks something like this, where the presentation layer is not connected anymore to the business logic. In this way, the presentation layer can work as a standalone application, and many times it's being built as a JavaScript application that renders the output of this API into HTML. The data you get from the business logic, so the stock data, the images, and everything you get from there. So the only thing you have to do is make sure that the data is available from the business logic. However, your business logic is still very tightly coupled together. Some pros of going headless: the front ends are not depending anymore on backend processes. We have performance advantages on the front end. We have a high scalability and reliability on your front end, as you can scale and be reliable on your front end as a whole. And you can be very flexible and integratable on your front end. And developers can work in separate teams. You have your front end team and you have your backend teams. However, you still need to make sure that everything is accessible via API. Some cons of going headless, therefore, are really data coming via the API can be very, very slow. And you need to expose all data via API. Existing backends are not ready. When you have, for example, Magento or Shopify, they're pretty good, but there's still a lot of custom work that needs to be done to make sure that your data is being exposed to the front end. And starting this whole layer from scratch is going to take a long time. Not only do you have to build your front-end team, but you also have to make sure all the data is there, and you have to think of all the SEO things. As SEO, I'm not sure why this slides are skipping all the time, but SEO issues with single-page applications are there, and especially when you're using JavaScript front-ends. So some of the major platforms happily are going headless. We have BigCommerce, we have Magento, we have Shopify, and also WordPress and other applications are really preparing for this headless movement. They make sure that all the content and commerce is available via API, so you can add your API layer to that, and you can talk to that layer and build your own front ends there. So there's already big improvements going on to move towards this headless structure opposed to this just monolithic structure. But what about PWA? Many times when I talk about headless, people ask me about PWA. So PWA is the marriage between a native app and a responsive website. You can function offline, have push notifications, etc., etc. As we all know, 53% of users will abandon a page when it takes more than 3 seconds to load. And that's obviously very weird when I put it into real life situation, where I see that when I'm just waiting at the cash register in 3.2 seconds, I am gone. Unfortunately, the average mobile web page load on 3G is 19 seconds, and it's not much better on 4G when we have 14 seconds. If we know that 3.2 seconds is leaving our customer, we're still having this kind of results that I think is really, really bad. So PWA can really help with this. We have Tinder, who've been using it. They made sure that their website was 7.22 seconds faster, their application, when using PWA, and therefore 90% smaller, and they had more messages, more swipes, and longer sessions. Also, Uber tried it, and they were able to load within 3 seconds on just 2G networks. With that, they were opening a full new market, as they could deliver their services in a 3G network within 3 seconds. Another cool thing you can do with Progressive Web App is send push notifications, and we can have this kind of stuff coming from websites very soon. So a Progressive Web App, what is it? Well, according to our friends at Google, a Progressive Web App is progressive, responsive, connectivity independent app like fresh, safe, discoverable, re-engageable, installable, and linkable. These are all feature kinds. I mean, these are all things that describe a behavior, but not a technology. Like, what exactly is a progressive web app? Well, a progressive web app, basically, technically speaking, are three things. It's a service worker, it's a web app manifest, and it's HTTPS. So literally, we can add a PWA to anything. It doesn't have to do anything with the architecture. And when I look at that in an overview, that's how it looks like. And I don't know why the next slide, why it's not loading. And that is like this. In the monolithic architecture, the PWA can exist, but also in the headless architecture, the PWA can exist. So the PWA is fully independent from what is happening in your architecture. Unfortunately, the PWA does not give you fire. It's not necessarily flexible. It can be more reliable, but it doesn't like integrate with everything. You have to add it to the layer, but it does give you a little bit more reliability, extensibility, not really, and scalability, not really. So PWA is not a solution for these websites that really need to grow more. So to do that, we need to go to the next level. And for that, we call it the service-oriented architecture. And what we do here is that we bring these features of a headless architecture where your presentation layer is separate. We also bring this to the back end. So we're also decoupling the back end. And so that will bring this flexibility, extensibility, scalability, and reliability to both the front end and the back end. How does it look like? It looks something like this. In the service-oriented architecture, as you can see, we have a very strong middleware, and then we have presentation layers on the top, can be 1, can be 2, can be 10, and we have business services. And all these business services are not stuck together anymore. They're all separate. They communicate directly with the middleware, with their own database, without disturbing the rest. The secret of this SOA is obviously this middleware. The middleware connects all the dots between the backends and the frontends, but also transfers the data between different backend services. You don't have to integrate them anymore with each other. Different from a microservice architecture, as you can see here, where the microservices directly communicate with the UI and with each other. In the SOA architecture, we do that through the middleware. So in the traditional SOA, we use a service orchestrator and the ETL tool, but luckily we don't have to do that anymore. We have GraphQL now, which is perfectly and can help us do this kind of work without building something very complex. So if I move forward, then I'm asking, what is the pros of going SOA? We have manageable services. We have separate deployment languages and databases. It's very scalable and reliable. It's flexible and integratable, very extendable without adding any complexity, as you can extend your backends, but also switch your backends and your frontend without having to break down the system. It is a very fast adoption of new features and technologies. And the cool thing is you can use existing services. There's a lot of cool things out there for search, for images, for stock, for orders. You don't have to build all the services by yourself anymore. SOA therefore has FIREs. It has the flexibility, the integratability, the reliability, the extensibility, and the scalability. Obviously, there are also some cons of going SOA. We have a complex to build from scratch. It needs an architecture for your blueprint, and it's more initial setup work. But eventually, it's very highly future-proof. But what if we build a light SOA? What if we can make sure that we have a light version that everybody can start with? And that's basically what we did in a project. And what we did is we made sure that we looked at what do we need to build this light version. We need a middleware. We need a data integrator, a way to integrate this data, and we need some basic services. And I don't know why the slides are skipping again, but we need these three things to build the light version here. And that's what we did in our company. So we built a very strong middleware, which can integrate, as you can see in the bottom, with all different industry partners. So we don't build any services ourselves, no payment, we use BigCommerce for commerce, we use SAP for stock data, WordPress for content, Algolia, etc. You can really make a puzzle and use the services that are out there. You can even make your own services and use what you've built. And then obviously there's a team there on the front end, which we use a progressive web app for. So I'm going to show you an example of how that works. So here on the left side, I have a demo shop where I'm using BigCommerce and Algolia. There is no direct integration between the two. That doesn't even exist. Then on the right side is my backend of BigCommerce, where I'm going to change the price of a product. In the top right, you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for my PWA team, ask my server for a search result, who's asking Algolia. Then I'm updating data in BigCommerce, which is then sending this information to the server, which is immediately sending send this to the other server, BigCommerce, Algolia. So I'm going to search for a clock, and the clock is 89 euros. And I'm going to change the price to 99. I'm going to save it, and I don't have to rebuild any index. I don't even have to go to Algolia. Back to the front end, which is a single page application, and I just reperform the search and the price has been changed. So the data is going through different backends to the front end, really, really fast. And the results are, we have 300 milliseconds processing time, and the time to market to build such things only 2 to 3 months. And we can have unlimited flexibility to add any service there to build whatever your business needs. So we have 3 main architectures. We have a monolith, we have a decoupled architecture, and we have a service-oriented architecture. Which one is the best? Well, that's basically a hard question because it really depends on what you're trying to build. For a simple blog, a monolithic architecture might be perfect. For a web shop, B2C, presentation area with less complex business logic, that's fine. But if you have growth ambitions and you want to go multi-X, multi-languages, multi-storefronts, multi-backends, multi-stock locations, name it, whatever you want to do, your multi-X webshop, you're really going to need to have a service-oriented architecture to move forward in the future. If you're using headless architectures for that, you're going to be stuck very soon as your business logic is going to be overloaded. To decide what your business needs is really one of the hardest tasks out there. Really take your time to do this and focus on your business and on your ambitions and not what you need today. Many times I see people building of what they need today and not think about what they need tomorrow. And that's actually a shame, because if you're putting in the time and the work to do it right now, why not do it good immediately so you're not going to build up any technical debt? That was my presentation. If you want to read more about these architectures, about these differences, I wrote a blog on dev.to about this. You can follow the link here or scan the QR code and you will find it. If you have any questions, please ask me. I'm ready in the Q&A for you, and I'm happy to answer every single question of you. Thank you very much.